Running backs. What are you seeing from this group? It's a hard group to analyze in training camp, but still, Rohan's good. And real quick, before we go, I saw if we've gone 45 minutes, if you weren't here at the beginning, if you've never seen Rohan before, he writes for 49ers Web Zone, and he's been at every single practice. So I just wanted to point that out. He's seen everything I've seen. Rohan, what have you seen from the running backs?
Running backs, interesting group, obviously without pads. And I yesterday kind of changed my outlook because before yesterday, I kind of had a clear indication of who the 49ers at least thought were competing for those top spots. Before yesterday, it was Mitchell at the 1. Mitchell has been a clear-cut 1 all camp. That's like that is like he's up there. Trey Sermon, though, was seeming like the 2 before yesterday, with TDP being the 3. He got 1 first-team carry or 2 first-team carries on Tuesday, that was, and then didn't get any yesterday. And then Mason and Hastie battling for 4 because Wilson was out with that undisclosed injury for a couple of days. Yeah, whatever it was. And then Mason was looking good. I had him above Hastie just because he's been a little bit of a better player, which we can explain in a minute. But yesterday, Jeff Wilson comes back in the mix and he's getting first team snaps. It's him, Sermon, and it's Elijah Mitchell. To me, Wilson did have a good practice yesterday, putting him back in the mix. But last week when we saw Wilson, he looked less explosive. He looked slower, in my opinion. And his biggest trait, at least his biggest selling point for this team, is his catching ability, because the 49ers need a receiving running back. You saw yesterday how Elijah Mitchell dropped a 4-yard pass in the flat, which was right to him. It just bounced off. I think it was his hands or his chest. Yeah, it bounced off his chest.
It should have hit him in the hands. It went through the hands, hit him in the chest. It was bad.
And then the other guy that kind of his biggest selling point is receiving is Jermichael Hastie. And I've been watching one-on-ones. I want Hastie to make somewhat of a difficult catch. He was up against Fred Warner the other day, and the ball was really nice from Brock Purdy. And it also, it was going to be a difficult catch, but it just bounced off Hastie's chest. So, like, to me, the most consistent receiver so far has been Jordan Mason. And because he's younger and been the better receiver so far, I'd put him over Jeff Wilson Jr. Also,
he's the new Jeff Wilson Jr., Jordan Mason.
He is. He's just
the new Jeff Wilson Jr.
He's the more
Jeff Wilson the third.
Yeah, he is. He is. I personally like him. I think he's honestly even been better than some of the other running backs just because he's a little more consistent. It's just he doesn't get as much playing time. And TDP had his best practice, I think, yesterday. He's had a strong practice and a half. He was slow on Tuesday to start, finished really strong, especially with that 15-yard screen play that he had where he was weaving pretty nice. And then yesterday, the one play that really stuck out to me, he got the ball and he burst to the edge and he beat it was the linebacker in coverage.
That's what stood out to me is he actually turned the corner, and no one on this team can do that other than Debo. Do you think he can do that? Do you think that's going to be something he can bring to the offense?
I want to see more again because it hasn't been a part of his game in college, at least. That wasn't necessarily a part of his game, but he has burst, right? It's not necessarily he has top end speed, but he has burst in my opinion, at least. Mitchell seems like a little bit of a better, he seems a little more primed for that role because the other guys just excel on the interior. I think Mitchell will be the primary outside zone guy. And because the 49ers run that a lot, I think he'll get a lot of carries. But I think TDP, I think Trey Sermon, and I think even Jordan Mason are all going to get rushes towards the interior.
The Niners need to be deep at running back because they've invested a lot in the position. They're a run first team. They get injuries at this position. Everyone does. That being said, my guess for the carry breakdown week 1 is 21 for Mitchell, 20 for Mitchell, 20 for Mitchell, 8 for Lance, 3 for Debo. What do you think? That's it. 1 for McLeod.
I'll disagree a little bit. The reason being, last week, what did we see in week 2? Elijah Mitchell got he got 17 carries and he was banged up really, really close to the beginning of the season. I don't think they want to start him that high, especially because this is like he bulked up, but he's finally dealing with how his playing weight will be. And I think they want to ramp it up a little bit. I don't think he's going to be the 20 carry back for the year because the 49ers realized last year, if you're doing that, Elijah Mitchell is going to be sitting out the games for 6 games. And I think it's more important at least to have Elijah Mitchell in 17 games and have his ability ability, because he's the one kind of differentiator apart from Deebo Samuel, in that he can rush to the edge a lot. I know Davis Price had that one rep, but I think he and Samuel are more consistent. And I think the 49er run game becomes a lot more limited if he's injured for 6 games. So I'd rather have him run 10 times every game, but like be able to stretch the defense when you rush the outside for 17 games as opposed to 6. So I think there will be a little more of a balance. I don't know if Deebo also gets 8 carries in week 1. That's the interesting part.
No, I said Lance.
Oh,
Debo gets
Lance.
3 or 4. Lance, I think he's going to have like Lance
because
like 3 or 4
a
scrambles.
lot of scrambles, right? Yeah, I could see it.
Edgardo Rodriguez says, do we address kick returner? Well, Ray, Danny Gray, what do you see?
Yeah, it's actually interesting because I've actually written down, I've seen who's been returning punts. There have been 4 players, and it might honestly give a little bit of an indication, or 5 indication of who could be receiver number 6. And I know it's not that big of a point to hit, but McLeod has been the guy, and then McLeod was out, so there were a couple of other guys. You saw Danny Gray in there, like you said. You saw Keyshawn Marcus Johnson, and then Malik Turner in there. So those 3 guys obviously battling for receiver 6. Malik Turner, in my opinion, right now seems like he's got the edge on them, with Tay Martin probably at number 2 because that release package is just nasty. But overall, kick returner, probably going to be McLeod, and I hope that they split them. I don't think McLeod should get kick and punt, and I don't think Gray should get kick and punt. Split them 1 and 1. They both have had fumble issues in the past. Let them hone in on one thing and be consistent with that one thing rather than having too much on their plate.
I like it. Ben Myerson Football says dynamic duo, 50K grant. Thanks, Ben. August 4th.
Yeah, man. Congrats on 50K, man. That's
Appreciate
crazy.
it. Appreciate it. It's August 4th, and Jimmy, what is Jimmy?
Tell me. I'm not going to say it.
Don't ruin my day.